Well, I'm joined now by two political insiders, the director at GXO Strategies and Bill Shorten's former Chief of Staff, Cameron Milner, and Director of Headline Advisory, Andrew Carswell, Scott Morrison's former Press Secretary. Welcome to you both. Look, let's start with this story in The Australian today about the former Guardian political editor. It was her first week as media advisor to Anthony Albanese last week, and she's apparently already ruffling feathers and speaking out of turn in meetings, according to The Australian, at a joint Senate Tactics Committee hearing that was chaired by Penny Wong. Katharine Murphy spoke out. Now, Cameron Milner, you've got the inside word on what happened at this meeting. What can you tell us?
Well, Katharine Murphy obviously was a scribe of choice for the Albanese group, and she wrote lots of puff pieces about him. But now the tables have turned because the familiarity she had with them when she was in the press gallery is not to be taken lightly when she's a staffer on the other side of the table. So Murphy thought she had the invitation to speak. Madam Wong gave her the death stare when she spoke out of turn. And not only did she do it in the Senate tactics, I can tell you she also did in the House tactics as well last week. So Murphy was making her presence well and truly known.
And do you have any detail about what unfolded at the House tactics or who was annoyed? Is there anything else you can tell us?
Well, she took on ministers, which is just not what you do as a staff member, and certainly not as the Prime Minister's representative. My only defence of Murphy is she's on $250,000 a year, so that's $5,000 a week. I guess for that she thinks she needs to be heard. That's the only defence I can think of, because it's not what you do on tactics committees when you're the staffer, when it's actually the minister's prerogative to speak.
Yeah. Andrew Carswell, I think it's interesting that at The Guardian, they've effectively replaced one Albanese staffer with another Albanese biographer in Karen Middleton.
Yeah, I found that deeply surprising today, Sharri, I must admit. But just on this, just on this Katharine Murphy story, I think it's a vastly different environment you're going into as a journo. So there's a little bit of grace there. There are appropriate and inappropriate times to be giving your advice in these kind of meetings. And it very much depends on the context and what's being discussed. If what's being discussed has an external risk factor to it, then by all means speak up. And the PM should be actually empowering his staff to speak up as long as they hold their lanes. If they're talking about policy, then it crosses over the lines. But if it's in their lanes, by all means speak, and you should have that empowerment from the PM himself. But what this says to me is it's not the fact that Katharine Murphy spoke up once or twice. It's the fact that you've got ministers here that are shocked by that, are appalled by that.
Leaking about it.
Yeah, that says everything about the way. That says everything about the way the government has handled communications in the last 18 months. They've been terrible at it. Maybe they should actually listen to their communications advisors.
And of course, Carswell, you had a similar experience. You were Chief of Staff at the Daily Telegraph and then went to work for the Coalition.